sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
This is Dan Jurgen.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC. So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania.
Welcome to the Krypton Report. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the man of tomorrow, and with me, as always, that handsome man who lives close by with the muscles, the beard, the might, the power, James.
Hey, what's going on, Tyler?
Just usual. Live in Ohio, getting over this cold.
I don't. With you and Brian, I don't need any other hype.
That's the truth. That's my goal. But hey, we're not alone today. No, we have a very special guest, and I'm pretty psyched. And I don't want to hype too much, but I'm really excited to talk with this person because not only is he a fellow podcaster, not only is he a DC fan, I've been listening to his podcast now going on 7 years. So
I've been listening to it for about 6 now.
So I would like to welcome Mr. Andy DiGenova of Holy Batcast, Disordered, and the Real Fans for Real Movies podcast. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks. Yeah, you really put it in perspective. 6 and 7 years. Oh man. Thanks for listening that long. God bless you. I appreciate that, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Happy holidays, guys.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas. You as well. Merry Christmas.
Thanks.
Yeah, so my story goes, I had a job and I was driving, and when we moved back to Ohio, I was looking for more podcasts to listen to, and I found Holy Batcast. And this was in summer of 2014. And the first episode I remember listening to was when you talked with, the name evades me, but he had worked on Batman Returns.
Oh, yeah. He was he worked on the special effects and the puppets, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Guy I worked with at Disney.
Yep. And that was the first one. And then from there, of course, you plugged your other show. So I was like, I checked out Real Fans for Real Movies. Yeah. And then I used to listen to you too back when you did the Batman universe. So,
yeah. For a minute, I did the Batman universe and Batman news. There was a quick minute there on the internet where I was on 3 major Batman podcasts, and it was just too much. It was all too many.
Oh, I understand, because James and we've had a plan. We were going to launch this fall, but ironically, both of us ended up moving within a month of each other. We were going to launch our Supernatural retrospective podcast, but we'll get there. The show was on for 15 years and ain't going nowhere. We'll get there, James. We'll get there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But no, I've been a big fan of your podcast. I've listened to them since then, and not to toot too much horn here, but your podcast, Holy Batcast, and there was another podcast that actually, when I decided to do my own show, were the two that kind of inspired of how I wanted to do my show.
Oh, that's awesome! I love that.
So
well, thank you.
You're welcome. I got started in podcasting at the end of 2014. I was on a podcast for Gotham, and we just reviewed Gotham and did some Batman related things, and then I spun out and started this show myself in 2015. So I mean, that's 6 years ago, so when you start putting it in time perspective, it's yeah, but we're here, and we're here to just chat, and this is part of a series that we've been doing where we're just here to chat with other podcasters, about our fandom, about why we do this hobby of talking into microphones and recording ourselves. So Andy, go ahead and kind of give us a history, first of all, on just your DC fandom. We know you're the Batman guy, and we know that there's hours of Holy Batcast for people to check out, but let's kind of compress it in a nutshell of
I think we're at 320 episodes, somewhere in there. So yeah,
I want to say that sounds about right, because I was listening to your Titans, your most recent episodes as of this recording was you were talking about Titans season 3.
Yeah, it
which
came
is
out last night.
323.
All right, there you go. 323 episodes. So,
And
I
this is,
have that queued up.
And when this airs, this will be our 301st episode.
oh wow! All right, congrats. 300. That's amazing. That's great.
I'm cracking
Okay.
open my Zoa, guys. Ready? Thank you, Dwayne Johnson.
All right. So I tell you about my DC fandom that eventually led me to wasting so many hours of my life talking about Batman and the DC universe on the internet. I feel like I've told similar stories in the past, but I've loved the DC characters pretty much since I can remember. I don't even remember the first time I saw Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman, but from my very earliest memories, I was always drawn to them. Like, I remember when the Superpowers action figures came out, I was entranced by them, and I wanted them so badly, and I never really got them. The only one I ever got was the Joker. I wanted the whole line of them. I remember like going to a friend's house, and he had them all, and I was just like, these are the coolest, and he had the Batmobile and the Hall of Justice, and I just knew I liked it. I knew they were colorful, they looked cool, and even as a little kid, I was just like, I like that. My grandma had like a Batman coloring book that she had bought, and I read it like it was an actual book. I was less interested in coloring and more interested in just reading it and looking at the pictures. So yeah, like I just always liked them. Same thing with Superman. Like I remember when Superman, the movie, was on TV, it was like an event where I was like, oh my God, they're going to show Superman. And so I have to watch it tonight. So I was super into it, and I was just drawn to it from a very early age. I remember having a Wonder Woman coloring book that was like the Linda Carter Wonder Woman. And so, yeah, like it was just this natural attraction I had for these characters and for this world. And like so many people in my age bracket, I think you guys are pretty close. I'm not quite sure.
I'm 36.
Okay. Okay. So you're both a little bit younger than me. I'm 43. But for me, the biggest event in the world was Batman 89. And again, I already liked Batman up until then. I was already watching the 66 series in syndication, so I already liked it. But that movie, I mean, it was a landmark, right? It was just the biggest thing in the world. And I bought into it hook, line, and sinker. And it captured my imagination so completely that year, especially that summer, that like I could not get enough Batman content. Every extra penny I could scrape together was to buy another piece of Batman memorabilia, a Batman comic book, whatever. And I even then, I was 10 years old. I wanted to be like an expert on Batman. So I remember watching Batman 66, and it was like King Tut. And I was like, well, where's King Tut from? Is he in the comics? I need to find a comic book with King Tut. Like I couldn't get enough Batman, and it was all around that movie. I read the novelization, I read the comic book adaptation, I read the official book of Batman. And so, yeah, it just became this obsession with me. And then it became a lifelong obsession. So Batman is my one true love, but I love the whole DC universe, and if you listen to Holy Batcast, you know that I love Batman first and foremost, but I love Superman. I love Wonder Woman. I love Green Lantern. I love Flash. I love Blue Devil. Y'all know that.
So I got excited when Swamp Thing went on. I was like,
I know.
Andy's cheering. Andy's,
I know. My day.
He's got a fist in the air, like, finally.
Right. My day had come.
Right. Have you watched the recent episodes of Young Justice of season 4?
I am like 2 episodes behind.
All right. We're not saying anything else.
So, but based on your question, it sounds like I need to catch up as soon as possible. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it just captured my imagination so much, especially in 1989. And then I became a comic book kid, and all through, middle school, junior high, high school, I was a comic book kid. I collected comics, I collected comic cards, any superhero piece of media, DC or Marvel, that I could get my hands on, I would just love. Especially because back then, and we've talked about this a lot, especially because we're so spoiled now, is back then, like, we were starving. So any little thing we could get our hands on was a huge win. God, I remember like recording the TV show Mantis. Do you remember Mantis?
Yes. That had Carl Lumbly in it.
Yeah, Carl Lumbly, exactly. And because I was like, it's a superhero show. I don't even care. It's not based on anything. It's a superhero show. I'm going to watch it. So, yeah, it just became a lifelong thing. And then once I realized that Batman was here to stay, I just embraced it and made it part of my persona. Got my Batman tattoo, started a Batman podcast. Like,
I loved your gender reveal.
Thank you.
That was Batman themed also.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny. We had the best plan, the best laid plans, but they don't always go as planned. But my wife, God bless her, Catherine, she's so cool. And like, I never have to twist her arm to do anything cool and nerdy. And she's like right there with me. So I love that. She's awesome.
That's the best. That's what makes it perfect.
She is totally an enabler in my geek life, and I love her for it. I mean, like, while I'm talking to you right now, I'm sitting in my office, and my office is all bad, as you would expect. And again, she helps me with it. But anyway, yeah, we were pregnant, our first child, super exciting, and we were trying to figure out a gender reveal, and we didn't want something that was like too obnoxious, but we wanted to do something. And I had this great idea of like, oh, we get a bat signal, we put either blue or pink on it, and we light it up. That's the reveal, right? And then we get ready. I buy the bat signal, I buy the gels, I'm ready to go. We try it out at her parents' house, which is where we have the shower, and her parents' house apparently is facing towards the sun all day long.
And my old house.
And her mom doesn't believe in blinds in the common areas, so we couldn't even like close the blinds to make it dark enough to see the bat signal.
Oh man.
And so we test it, and the shower's in the middle of the day. We test it, and we're like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. And my sister-in-law, Catherine's sister, had the great idea. She goes, well, what if we buy Christmas lights and put them, ones that can change colors, and we put it on the Christmas tree and we light it up blue or pink. And I'm like, that's actually a great idea. Let's do that. But then I also bought a onesie, a gender-specific Batman onesie. And so that's what we ended up doing is we ended up switching on the Christmas lights to pink. We're having a little girl and pulled out the Batgirl onesie. And then we waited a few hours until it got dark enough that I could still shine the bat signal that I paid for I didn't even get to use, so we could at least take the picture for the reveal. So it still worked out, but man, I just had this vision of like this really beautiful pink bat signal for my daughter, and it just was like, oh, it's too bright, we can't see it. It sucks, but
oh, well, that's a shame.
But the picture worked out
with it in the middle of the day. Yeah, it was a great photo. It's a great photo. I liked it.
It was. They're like, what should we do? We'll send the signal.
He gave us a signal.
That's awesome. And, like your whole story, it's kind of, it's similar to like what I experienced. Like I've talked before, like I don't remember being introduced to the characters.
Yeah.
As much as I feel like they were always there.
Right. Exactly. Like even as a kid, like Underoos. Remember Underoos?
I do.
Yeah, like I remember seeing commercials for Underoos, and I just innately, I was like, well, I want the one with the bat on it.
I remember the JCPenney's catalog circling the Robin and Batman pajamas.
Oh, yeah.
And my mom has a picture somewhere of me standing next to the washing machine in my Superman underwear crying because my Superman PJs were being washed. I got to find that, and I will share it someday. But, my whole problem was I had a very bad experience with Batman Returns. My mom took me and my brother to see it, and she hated it, and then like complained about it, and like tried to leave the theater in the middle of it. And like I was, I begged her, let's stay, please. So for the longest time, there was like that big stigma behind that movie, and like it put like a huge like dampener on that movie for me, and so it just kind of like really sucked, because we still had Batman 89 and then, of course, the animated series. And it was just like a horrible experience that I bring up because I'm like, because when I hear people talk about like, their experience with Batman Returns, it's like, mine was not good. I'm like, because that was the first time where I was old enough to go see a Batman movie in theaters. Mm-hmm. And it was not a good time.
Yeah.
It was not fun.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, I remember going to see Batman Returns. My mom took me to see all the movies. Same with me. They were just always around since I could remember. Watching Super Friends on TV, Linda Carter, Batman 66, Chris
always on
Reeve.
effects.
Yeah, Chris Reeve beats. Just everything was always on, always there, you know. And then there was always something as we were growing up. 92, there was Batman animated series. 96, Superman, Justice League. So yeah, it was always there. Luckily, my mom didn't complain about Batman Returns. I remember the VHS Batman 89 with the gold bat symbol on it, black case, gold bat symbol on it, and then the Batman Returns with all three of them head over head.
Yep.
On the front of the
totem
VHS
pole
case. Yep.
What's funny is I have the Blu-ray box set of the Batman anthology films, and my kids just started calling them by the colors. So Batman 89 is gold Batman.
Okay.
Batman Returns is white Batman. Batman Forever is green Batman, and then Batman Robin is red Batman. I'm like, okay, that's how you do it. I'm like, that's fine. They're like, Daddy, can we watch this one? I'm like, sure.
What's their favorite?
Well, it kind of depends, honestly, because they like them all, but it's just kind of their mood.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I'm a Schumacher lover because I see the value in those movies for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see like how much kids like those, and then they kind of work backwards. Like my kids love Forever and Batman and Robin, and then started like going into 89 and Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times it's just the villains. Because my son loves Bane, even though, you know, Batman and Robin's like the worst Bane ever.
Right.
So he always gets a kick out of that. And of course, you know, Batgirl's in there. So my daughter's like, Batgirl.
I've always liked Bane, so when I was younger and that movie came out, that was okay. But shortly thereafter, it was like, no, that was all.
Well, it's like I've always loved Two-Face, you know, in the animated series and the comics. So when, you know, they were going to do Batman Forever and it's Two-Face, I was like, yeah. And then you watch and you're like, yeah. And then you grow up and you're like, okay.
Not so good.
Not exactly the Two-Face that I wanted.
Yeah, not the same as I remember.
I remember when Batman and Robin was coming out, I was, you know, I don't really like either of the Schumacher films, but after Batman Forever, I was like, I knew what I was getting with Batman and Robin. I was already kind of ready for it. And so I wasn't really looking forward to it very much. But like the one hope I was holding out, so I was like, yeah, but they're putting in Bane, which is really interesting because at that point, Bane was still really new.
Yeah.
But, you know, they did the whole Nightfall arc. And so Bane was this brand new big bad. And the fact that he made it into a movie so quickly, I was intrigued by that. I remember talking to my good friend Dilip about it when the movie was coming out. I'm like, yeah, they're doing Bane. Like, that's interesting. The trailer doesn't look so good, but we'll see how Bane turns out. And then we go see it. And we're like, and yeah, I should have known everything.
You're like, I should. The thing about the Schumacher movie,
the action figure of Bane was really cool.
Oh, it's great. Yeah,
for the movie line.
For sure, it's rad as hell. And I also remember seeing the action figure for Batgirl and going, "Oh, cool, she looks pretty good." And then going to the movie, and I'm like, "Why doesn't she look like the action figure? It looked better."
Yeah, that's a whole nother story of change her costume, and she has the cowl for like 3 seconds when she's on the motorcycle.
Well, and it's like too big for her head, so it looks dopey, and so disappointing.
What's interesting is like the Schumacher movies, like I said, like they are what they are. I made peace with them.
Oh, me too. Like I don't love either movie, but it's like, yeah, exactly. They are what they are. They're kind of fun in a nostalgic way. I could see your point is like, yeah, it's something easy for kids to watch that you don't have to worry about.
And the thing about Batman and Robin that I loved was the excitement for it and the merchandising. Because I just remember that summer, like Taco Bell had the cups and the games, and like you could find the toys everywhere, and like the cereal boxes, and I really miss that.
Yeah,
like we never get that anymore with anything. And that was just that summer was just you could find it everywhere. And now, I mean, you're talking about if you think about going back in time, 97, we got 3 comic book movies that year, and none of them were wonderful, you know. And then we got Steel, Batman and Robin, and Spawn.
I was trying to think of what the third one was because Batman and Robin and Spawn, but I was like, what's the third? Steel. Yeah. Which I only watched for the first time.
It's best.
What was that?
I said, and sadly, probably Spawn's probably the best of them.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I haven't gone back and watched Spawn in so long. Like, I'm afraid to.
None of them are great. I watched Spawn relatively recently, and it did not age well for me. I think it was on Netflix or something. I was like, yeah, I haven't seen this since the theater. Let me try it. I was like, oof.
Oh yeah, it needs a total talk.
Yeah, I'm shocked that that did not happen, especially living in the world that we are now, where every comic book is IP that they're ready to exploit. How heck?
Well, that one's being slowly done by Todd McFarlane himself. Like, he's got Jamie Foxx signed.
Yeah, but I feel like it's been 2 years since I've heard anything about it.
Right. It's because
earlier this year he got a writer on.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And he also does have a Sam and Twitch show about the detectives in development. So there's a couple of things actually.
Spawn's the one that boggles my mind, because that was like the one comic property that came out and had a movie, had toys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was like huge, like probably the biggest non-big two ever.
Yeah.
As far as like superhero type stuff, but yeah. And then I always remember that was 97, and then 98 is where we started to change.
I'm still reading.
That's when we got Blade, was in 98.
Yeah.
And that's when the landscape started to shift.
And Blade rules. I feel like Blade still holds up. I watched that relatively recently too, Blade and Blade 2. I did a little double feature, I think maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, no, these are still pretty damn good.
They are.
A little bit of the effect stuff, but that's to be expected. But for the most part, they're both really, really good movies.
Yeah, they are. And then we get that poop show that's Blade 3.
I know. It's so sad.
Blade Trinity.
So I've still only ever seen that once in the theater. One of these days I'll get brave and revisit it. But for now, I'm good with the Blade double feature.
Good luck with that.
There's only 2 Blade films, guys.
Yeah.
No, Andy, there's a third. No, guys, there are 2. And there never was a TV show. But all right, we'll keep moving on. We can just run down memory lane here. So we understand that Andy loves Batman.
I love Batman and the overall DC.
And that's how we are too. Like, of course, this is a Superman-based podcast, and we love Superman, but I love Batman too. And I love all of them. I mean, I have a Batman tattoo, a Superman tattoo, a Flash tattoo, and an Aquaman tattoo.
Hey, sounds like I got some catching up to do.
So, and then I had kids.
I want to get Robin on the opposite arm, because I've got Batman on the left arm. I want to get Robin on the right arm.
That makes sense. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play, it's kind of some questions, and we're going to I got some Superman kind of questions, and it's all your opinion, Andy. Like,
okay, good. Because I didn't study. I didn't know if this was trivia.
No.
I already failed before we started the show.
He sprung it on me too, so.
Okay.
Hey, this is what I do. But it's kind of just, it's your fandom, like your opinion. And we're going to kind of throw in some Batman questions too. Just
Thank you.
I said, for people who haven't listened to your show, who will be intrigued now to go and listen to your show. So let's see. What is your favorite version of Superman? That means in live action, a comic movie, whatever. Like, what's your favorite version of Superman?
That is an excellent question and so hard to answer.
And you can talk about and explain it.
Yeah, I mean, oof.
There are no wrong answers.
This is true. Oh my God, that's so hard to answer. Because the 3 that jump to mind are, of course, Christopher Reeve, Henry Cavill, and Superman the Animated Series. Those are the 3 that jumped, because I love all 3 of them. I don't know if I can pick.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, because they're all 3 amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And then the comics. I mean, I love Superman in the comics, but I'm not the connoisseur of Superman comics where I can say, oh, this arc or something like that. But, obviously Superman in the comics is terrific, especially when I was really deep into the comics in the 90s. I loved, Superman as well then. But I know it's sort of maybe it's just the sentimental answer, but it's the same reason I picked Michael Keaton as my favorite Batman. I still think I got to go with Christopher Reeve, but just know that it pains me to pick one of those three.
Oh no, I totally get it,
because I think they're all just so.
Because if you would have asked me a little over a year ago, my favorite Superman, I usually would say Tom Welling, because
I love him too. Yeah,
of when Smallville came out, I started high school. He started high school, and that show ran through the back of my life for 10 years. And, I got married, and then after I got married, 2 months later is when the show ended. And now the problem I have is I've fallen so much for Tyler Hoechlin's performance as Superman the father on Superman and Lois that gets me as a father of two. Yes, my children are younger, but seeing that side of the character, I'm like, man, it's harder for me now. So like I said, there's no wrong answer, because I really identify with the Superman he's portraying as a father.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's great too, honestly. There have been a lot. I mean, just like there have been a lot of great Batmen, because I have a soft spot for most Batmen. Same thing with Superman. I love Tom Welling, and I think the reason he wasn't in my top three is just because he never really got to be Superman. He was,
right. It's a cheat. We know it's a cheat.
So that's why I'm like, well, but man, he was so good in Smallville, and I miss that guy. But yeah, and then Tyler Hoechlin's doing an amazing job on Superman.
Yeah. So here's the trick question here. Who's your favorite Clark Kent?
Oh, that is a trick.
Because that's the one where you can use Tom for both if you wanted to wiggle it,
I think I would pick Tom for that. I do. Because he was so great as Clark. Because I love me some Christopher Reeve. But his more cartoony Clark, I feel like, is not my favorite. It's a little too much. We didn't get enough of Clark, I think, frankly, from Cavill. I think he's great in what he is, but we just don't get a lot of it. Yeah, I don't know. Tom Welling is Clark Kent, because he was Clark Kent for a decade.
No, I totally agree. As much as I enjoy Chris's performance, I rank his Clark as the bottom.
Yeah, it was of a different time, where it was just goofy.
And even then, if you our good friend Brian, who we bring on the podcast sometimes, he's been reading comics DC chronologically. And, he brought up the point before and talked to us that even the Clark of the comics at the time the movie came out was completely different than what they did.
Yeah.
So they did their own Clark for that film that later kind of filtered into the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Because, when my favorite Clark Kent it's one of those, without using Tom, I really enjoy what Tyler's doing. I like what Dean Cain did. I also really like what George Reeve did. It's the old golden age, no nonsense, tough Clark. People don't always think about that era and what he brought to the character. So we're gonna flip it now for you.
What was great about Tom, and what I think stands out in the final 3 seasons of Smallville, is how he gets to mature into being Clark and Super.
Mm-hmm.
Gets a job, starts working, is saving people, becomes, in the 10th season, he becomes more responsible for everything. He's standing up in front of all the heroes he's met, even if they're just on screens, and delegating how everything's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And especially because he was able to grow so much in the role over those 10 years. You're right. By the end, he just had an ease about him, and just a presence and a warmth. I don't know. He got better every year, even if the stories went up and down. The reason I never stopped watching Smallville is just because of how invested I was in him. And then, Michael Rosenbaum and Erica Durance especially as well.
Amen. So, and even I throw this out there, Superman Returns, Brandon Routh has a special spot in my heart, because of when that movie came out, just like personally, like what I was going through. It's like one of the, it's, as cheesy as it might sound to some people, like I needed that character at that time, you know? So like his Superman Returns has a special like place for me. So I know you said Michael Keaton's your favorite Batman. Is he your favorite Bruce Wayne?
No. Christian Bale. I feel like Christian Bale really, like, Michael Keaton is my favorite Batman again because he's the Batman. He was the Batman when I truly fell in love with Batman. So he will always be my Batman.
Makes sense.
And I love his performance as Batman. He has a laser focus that I think is so underrated because it's more subtle, but he's so focused when he is Batman in those two films, and I love him. But Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, I just think he nailed that public persona of Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy, the one that no one would ever suspect would be Batman because he's just out there having the time of his life. He's out there swimming with ballerinas, you know? So yeah, exactly. Sleeping in the boardroom. Like that was an angle on Bruce Wayne that we hadn't really seen in live action yet. And I was so happy when they finally did it, Batman Begins. And then it did carry over into the subsequent sequels. But yeah, he was so good in that. Again, it was a Bruce Wayne that I'd been waiting to see. And then when it happened, I was like, all right, nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
I think in those movies that the thing they nailed, and I think that Snyder and Ben Affleck carry on is how he uses his Bruce Wayne persona in business and in public to, one, I mean, he pushes off that suspicion, but everything he does, he's doing it for. Wow, he wanted to look at his book, so he used business to get in. Ben Affleck was using the party to get into Lexus Systems.
Mm-hmm. No, great point.
So, because he's always, that's the one thing is he never shuts off Batman.
Right.
Even when he's not wearing the cowl, he's always being Batman.
Mm-hmm.
This is all true. It's all true. Now, here's a quick question. To think, we know, like, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb here and say your favorite Batman movie is 89.
Correct.
Now, what do you think is the best Batman movie?
Batman Begins.
See, that's my answer is like Batman, like my favorite Batman film. It's one of those like I have a soft spot for Batman Forever because of what happened with Batman Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just like that was like it won. Like my mom took us with my dad, and like it was a good time, and like it was that soft kind of like, oh, we can watch Batman in theaters and stuff. Again. But I think Batman Begins is the best Batman movie.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and I've always said that Batman 89 is my favorite because it's the one that made me fall in love with the character. But I still have some nitpicks about that film. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I just love it so much. But Batman Begins, I have almost no nitpicks with that film. I just think it's fantastic, and I remember blowing me away when I saw it in 2005. I just think it's so good, and it the reason I give it the slightest edge over The Dark Knight, which I also think is a masterpiece. So don't get me wrong. Me and Jamie just talked about this on Holy Backcast, was where we kind of said, I said, listen, if you say the best Batman movie is Batman Begins or The Dark Knight, I'm not going to argue with you because they're, the difference is so minuscule. They're both terrific. I don't think, I think you can make a case either way. But the reason I give Begins a slight edge over The Dark Knight is because I feel like that was the best balance that Nolan ever found between comic book and real world.
Yes.
It was the perfect combination of both. And then I felt like he kept getting less and less comic with the sequels. He took a step away from it with Dark Knight and then even another step away from it when he hit Rises. And then I also just think it's like beautifully acted, like amazingly paced, incredibly well edited, like the amount of content they were able to fit into that film. And it's the film. I mean, we've had a few now, but like it truly is about Bruce and his journey. And and what he wants to do. And he is 100% the focus of that film. It's about his art. And the villains support that. And, you know, especially with the Burton Schumacher films, many people have said, you know, they were far more interested in the villains. And I think that's fair. But when Batman Begins, it's like, no, this is about Bruce's journey, and it never wavers from that. I just think it's perfect. And you get so much in Bruce that you're so invested in him. And then I always said the best trick it pulled off is that it got me to pay to see a Batman movie. Batman doesn't show up till an hour in, but I didn't even notice because of how good the movie is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've absolutely watched Batman Begins, and I have Dark Knight.
Well, I can't say that because when The Dark Knight came out, I was working at Blockbuster, and we got it early. And so I rented it, and I had 3 roommates. So from the time that I brought that disc home till probably January of 2009, at least one roommate had it playing at all times in the house. So, and then they had it playing at work. And so it just, you know, it was played so much that I'm like, I don't even know how many times you can count that I was in its presence. But no, I agree. You know, I have one nitpick really about The Dark Knight. My Dark Knight nitpick is the end where he's like, I killed those people, you know? We couldn't, if we're going to lie, we couldn't have flubbed it so that the Joker killed those people. Like, we couldn't have worked that around somehow.
Yeah.
You know, like, instead of blaming me and blaming Harvey, we could blame the Joker. You know,
right.
I've always had that little nitpick, like,
And I do think that those, it is those little things that for me hold The Dark Knight back just a tiny bit. And again, do not get me wrong, I love The Dark Knight. I think it's terrific. But there are little things like that where you go, oh, well, where if you think a little too hard about it, you go, oh, does that really make sense? Just like, I mean, a lot's been made of, like, the Joker's plans are so insanely intricate and require everyone to react exactly one way for any of it to work, where it's like, there's no way he could have predicted this is how it would go down. But in the world of this movie, we just have to assume that it did, right? That he's just that good. But I'm like, nah. So stuff like that, where you're like, okay, just go with it, right? Just go with, he's an evil genius and he really was able to work things out that well. Okay.
Yep. So here's the next question. If you could have and own and wear one of the bat suits, what would it be?
Oh, good question. I think I'd still go with Batman 89. I think.
I kind of lean towards Returns, but I'm not 100% because, you know, I also like the bat symbol that's on the second bat suit in Batman Forever. Like just the big flat
the big
bat.
Huge one?
Yeah, I always love that symbol. I like also the bat symbol that was in Batman Begins that we never saw again because it's a different style of bat.
Yeah.
But I like Returns. Like if I had to wear one, because it's got a little bit more of that sheen to it. And of course you still get the Nike boots. So
yeah. I know it's funny because over the years, I've heard a lot of people, I feel like fandom might be a little split on it. Is the 89 suit better or the Return suit better? I lean towards the 89 suit. I like the more organic look, whereas the Return suit looks a little more mechanical. But I know a lot of people feel like it was an improvement. So yeah, I feel like people are kind of split on it. I almost said the Affleck because I still think the Affleck suit is probably the best suit. I just don't like the big bat
agreed
symbol. I think that's what holds it back for me. But like that cowl is so good and the cape is so good, and I like that it's truly gray and black like that. Oh, I love that suit. I just don't like the fat bat.
See, I don't mind a big bat. Like I said, that Val Kilmer, that second suit, I don't mind that kind of a bat, but I hate that it's so square and blocky.
Yeah.
On the Affleck suit. I'm like, you were almost there.
Yeah, you're this close. You're this close.
Yeah, that suit's fantastic. The cowl made to look so scary.
Oh man, it's great.
It would be something to get used to, though. Even wearing the suit around the house, you have to turn your whole body. See?
Yeah.
Huh? So now we'll jump back on the other side. What's your favorite Superman movie? You can be live action or animated. Just favorite Superman movie.
Again, I have so many that I
It's okay. I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, go, you help me and let me decide where I stand.
As much as I complain about how they make Superman not relevant unless he's dying, my favorite Superman movie, honestly, is the animated 2018 Death of Superman.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's cool.
I loved the version of Superman. I loved how they did the Lois Lane relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I loved how they did the whole Doomsday fight. I love Bibbo in that. Like it gets me every time at the end where Bibbo's doing his prayer straight from the book. And I thought it was just a very well-made film, period. So it just, I tell people that because I'm like, there's always little things, nitpicks about all the live action ones, but I'm like, that one, if I had to pick, that's kind of where I lean to as my favorite. So
I do think those are really good. The Death and Return of Superman, the animated version, I thought, those were really great. And together, it just makes for one really long, epic movie. But
have you seen, or do you have the collected edition, the Death and Return of?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because the way they cut the credit scenes and stuff to transition in between the movies, it's a great in between. They put those together seamlessly.
Yeah, they get me every time.
Because even with the Dark Knight Returns, when the Dark Knight Returns Part 1 ends and then Part 2 begins, it's just fade to black, and then it picks up in a new spot.
Yeah,
that's why I'm. Andy, I just want to say this. I recently listened to you guys talk about Long Halloween Part 2. And the one thing that I was going to say is my issue with Part 2 is when it starts, if you think of it as one movie split into two parts, this is the middle of the movie where they have usually the montage. So the fact that Long Halloween 2 starts with a montage just feels so weird.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really waiting to watch it as one put together movie, because I bet it'll flow better into the second half, because I feel like I'm not stopping and then starting with a montage.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is weird pacing to just start that.
That, for whatever reason, why they shied away from all the holidays and stopped.
Yeah,
they showed. Yeah, they stopped telling the holiday. They showed the little thing, at the murder, but that was just in passing. They didn't focus on it. They didn't put the holiday or nothing.
And that's where I think it'll work.
Little.
That's where I think it'll work better as one movie, because it's showing you that it montages out into the Harvey story, but having the split in your brain is like, I'm watching a movie. This doesn't feel. It's not paced like a regular movie because technically watching the second half. But anyways, back to that Superman movie question.
Right. Okay. I think I got an answer. Because it's my favorite. I don't necessarily think it's the best, but it is my favorite. The way I always make these decisions, I pretend all of them are sitting in front of me and I have to pick one to watch. Which one am I going to grab to watch? Superman 2.
All right.
That's the one I'm going to pick.
Any preferred cut?
I actually prefer the theatrical. Not because I don't see the flaws, but because the Donner cut is incomplete. And so it doesn't quite work. It works as a what might have been, but I feel like it doesn't quite work as a movie because they didn't have everything they needed. Yeah. And that's why I still would go with the theatrical, because it still feels like a complete movie. Whereas the Donner cut, that whole the whole gun scene, it's so obviously doesn't match with the rest of the movie. There's one camera shot the whole time, and it just doesn't. It takes me out of it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I understand. It's weird because I don't have a preferred cut either.
Yeah.
And so I've watched them both sometimes so interchangeably that sometimes I forget what's in what.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally understood. Now, Andy, have you ever seen Superman Redeemed?
No.
I'll send you that link.
What's that one?
I just did an episode of the podcast Digging for Kryptonite where we talked about it. It is a fan, like high quality fan edit where the person who's referred to as a digital man edited Superman 3 and 4 together as one movie. And they used the bombing scene from Superman 2 in it. And they used that as like the nuclear catalyst for why Superman goes to disarm the world. It's fan edits sometimes can be very like hit or miss, but like it's a very high caliber quality fan edit. And it's just one of those that it's kind of worth notating because it is so good. And just because of, the history of what, became Superman.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I never heard of that.
I will send you the link. I have it in my Dropbox, so I'll send you the link to my Google Drive. You can just grab it from there.
All right, cool.
It's totally worth a watch because you'll be like, wow, this is quality editing and creates a story out of two films that really does redeem kind of that Christopher Reeve legacy.
That's great.
All right, favorite Superman suit.
Oh.
If you were going to put one on and wear it around the house and pretend like you're Superman, what you wearing?
I think I'm going to go BVS.
All right. Like I said, there is no wrong answer.
Yeah, I feel like it's mostly interchangeable with Man of Steel. There's some slight changes, but yeah, I think I'll go with BVS on that one.
It's a good one.
I think
it's, I'm out of the Cavill suits. I like the cuffs on the Man of Steel suit and everything, but I like the blue in the BVS suit.
I think that's why I picked it. Is the blue feels a little bluer in BVS, and that's why I'm going with it.
Just a couple more questions, then we'll switch topic here. When it comes to Superman, trunks or no trunks?
I don't care.
See, that's a great answer.
I find it the most silly thing that so many fans, like, that's the hill they want to die on. I don't understand. It's like totally not even an issue. Give him trunks, don't give him trunks. He's still Superman. I'm good.
My rationale, and James and I have kind of come to this, is if it isn't the comics, I don't care. Live action, I prefer no trunks because I think you can make a suit work without them.
Mm-hmm.
And, the Brandon Routh suit, it looked good with the trunks. But sometimes it's really kind of tricky. And also, if you watch the way they shot him a lot, you didn't get full body shots sometimes. And, I think you can work without it, but it kills me, just like you said, that's the hill that some fans want to die on.
It's like, so funny.
He has to have these trunks.
Yeah. Doesn't affect me anyway.
If you could have one Batmobile to drive around as your day car, what would it be?
Burton Bat.
See, I used to say that, but I often think that I wouldn't mind having the 66 as like my day car.
No, like if we're talking like, sunny day and more functionality over style, I'd agree with you. 66 convertible, nice. But for just the pure style, always the Burton.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Affleck Batmobile.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I think it's a nice pairing of like the Burton and like the Tumbler.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I feel like it's a little too aggressive.
Yes,
yes. I'm going down the road like the bottom.
Well, who doesn't want to be pancaking cars driving down the road?
The bottom of my
Andy dealt with LA traffic. I bet he wish he had that back then.
Many times. Many times I wish I had that or the Tumbler. I just drive over people.
The Tumbler is my bottom, like, least favorite Batmobile.
Really?
It just, because to me, it doesn't feel like a Batmobile. Mm-hmm. It's because we're just saying the Tumbler. Like, that's kind of what you.
It always bugged me that they never called it the Batmobile. Like, just call it the Batmobile. But
they were ashamed of it. They're
yeah.
like, call it the Tumbler.
No, but aesthetically speaking, it's pretty low for me. But that chase scene in Batman Begins is so darn good. It sold me on that car.
Oh, I mean, I'm totally in. Like, I love it in that context, but it just doesn't feel like a Batmobile.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of like, it looks kind of cool, but the Batman and Robin one is completely impractical with the one-seater, the, open top. I'm like, nah, you don't even have a shield.
Right.
Like they have on, at least Batman 66 has the shield. So, we've been chatting about fandom and what we like, and that's, it's fun. But, the other thing that kind of brings us together is podcasting. What got you into podcasting, Andy? Like, what were you like, this looks like a fun hobby. Like, how did it start for you?
It started for me because I had a very boring office job where I, didn't have enough to do. So I spent way too much time just, sitting at my desk waiting for work. And I don't remember how I saw it. I think I saw it probably on Facebook or something, but there was a podcast about theme parks, and I was like, oh, I'll listen to that. And so I listened to that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. It's fans talking about stuff they love. And then I found a Batman podcast. It was my next step after I kind of discovered this theme park podcast. So then I discovered Batman podcast, and so I started listening to that again just to pass the time in this office job. And so I started listening to them, and like so many of us, you just find yourself wanting to talk back or make points or debate or agree or go, thank you for saying that or whatever. And so, we were part of the Real Fans group on Facebook where we just geek out about movies, sometimes fight about movies. I don't fight about them anymore. I left that behind years ago, but at the time I used to. And, we had fun in this group, and there was a group of us that we really started bonding. And one of the guys, his name was Wes, he goes, I think that we've reached the point where we could start our own podcast. And I'd been wanting to anyway. And I just needed that kick in the butt. And I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it. And so pretty quickly after he said that, I think within a few weeks, I did all my research and figured out how to do it. And that's when we launched the Real Fans podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so that's how we started. Real Fans, we started at spring of 2013. The only reason I remember that is because the first thing we reviewed was Oz, the Great and Powerful.
Nice.
Yeah. Which I feel like a movie most people have forgotten by now, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was the last directed Sam Raimi film until.
Oh my God, you're right.
The upcoming Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah, that's true. So that makes it easy to remember the first episode of Real Fans because I knew that was March of 2013. And then, we had so much fun doing that. And then I realized at that time, I looked, there was only 3 Batman podcasts in existence, maybe 5, very few, less than 10, let's say that. Batman podcasts at the point where I was like, well, I'll start my own, I'm shocked there aren't more of them. And so that's when I started Holy Batcast about a year after starting Real Fans. And then, then it just sort of snowballed and I started doing more and more of it to the point where maybe too much, overextending myself. And I still kind of paying that price where I do a little too much of it and then I have a hard time juggling them all. And some of them go quiet for a while, but you do the best you can. But it's just been this really fun creative outlet for me ever since where it's fun to talk to like-minded individuals or friends and geek out about the stuff you love and hopefully friendly debates about stuff you don't agree on. But it's just been a lot of fun and it's a great way to just step away from everything else that's going on and just enter this world where we talk about what we love for an hour or two and just a nice escape. It's a nice outlet. It's a nice hobby. It's just a lot of fun. And I've made so many friends that way and made so many connections and, people I would have never met otherwise and super grateful for that. But it's just this fun little outlet that we get to do on the side, that gets to be our little thing. And then you find there's so many more people out there with, similar thoughts or similar interests and we connect that way.
I mean, that has been the greatest thing about podcasting for me, is not just, getting to talk to, like, yeah, it's been great. Like when we talked with Mark Waid, and, this year, one of my highlights, I got to interview and talk to George Newbern.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
It was a great time. And I finally figured out, like I told him, it's like, he's my favorite Superman voice. And I figured out why is because of the lines that he got to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
It's always between him and Tim Daly,
Yeah.
But I said, when I sit and I look at the work that you've done in the episodes of like Destroyer, For the Man Who Has Everything, the Superman versus the Elite, the Superman. I'm blanking. I can't believe it. Oh, with Shazam.
Oh, yeah.
He did with Shazam.
Superman Shazam.
Like, you got to do some of the best lines, so you win. But I say all that just to kind of point to, I like this, talking to people who have a common, that's how I met James. Like, it's crazy because James found the podcast, he listened to it, and then I had stopped for a little bit because I didn't have anyone else other than myself talking, and we were shifting up things at the network I was part of. And he's like, hey, man, you still doing it? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, you want to be a part of it? And then to come find out, like, he only lives like 2 hours away. We're like 3 now. But, it's like we're both in Ohio. Crazy, and we talk like every day.
Yeah. It's about every day.
So it's like that is what I've enjoyed, is the connection of just fans who love doing this and love talking about these things. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the conversations you kind of always wanted to have, where you would go and try to seek out, like maybe at school or maybe at the comic shop, and then maybe with your friends, but sometimes maybe not. So you're having these talks in your head, and then now you just find people who talk about it, and you're like, hey, I want to join you. Like, can we talk about this and record it? Sure. Why not? We can ramble on for about the history of, Superman's trunks for 2 hours, whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
People talk about Superman. There's not enough talk about Jerry
he's my number
he's the
4.
voice. I was gonna say, he's the voice of Superman in your favorite Superman.
I know, but he's my number 4 voice. Okay. He's my number 4 voice. All right. I've had to rank them because that's how I am.
But it is true. I mean, I feel like for, especially 20 years ago, when superheroes weren't everywhere, geeks have not inherited the earth yet. And, you would try to find people to talk to this stuff about, or you would bore people who didn't care about it because you just wanted to talk about it. Because I remember doing that plenty, especially in like school.
Yep.
And now, because of stuff like this, you can have those conversations for 2 hours about something as simple as a Superman costume. Mm-hmm. And you talk to people who care just as much as you do, who want to spend 2 hours of their day doing that. And then you find the thousands of people out there who want to hear you talk about it for 2 hours a day. And so, like, the fact that this thing exists, that it allows us to find these like-minded individuals and have those conversations, it's pretty awesome. It's kind of magical.
It really is. I mean,
absolutely. Because of that, because where Tyler lived, every time I go to Columbus, I'm not too far away, down for the Arnold Sports Festival and visit my good friend.
Nice, that's great. I mean, on Holy Batcast, I got Jamie and Brendan most often, who joined me for that show. And Jamie lives in Indiana. Brendan lives in Australia. I've still never even met Brendan in person. But I talk to him more than I talk to members of my family because of this freaking podcast. It's crazy.
No, I get it. Like, what's funny is I had Brendan on the show years ago, back I think in 2016. I had Brendan on Krypton Report. We talked about it was Supergirl. It was a Supergirl episode. And what's crazy is we have friends that we talk to in Australia who do a similar podcast where they're more of just the straight comics. And we actually now have another friend in Australia who does a podcast on Superman the Animated Series. So we just connect with Australians. What can we say?
There you go. That's good. They tend to be good people, most of them except Brendan. But.
Right.
And then, I mean, we're in Ohio, and Jamie's over in Illinois, so he's just
Indiana.
Close. Indiana, that's
yeah,
right.
Indiana.
Illinois.
Like 4 hours closer.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I know it's one of the I ones. I flipped it.
Even closer.
Even closer.
I think from what I've heard, he's near or around Fort Wayne. I mean, honestly, that's only just a couple of hours. I could be in Fort Wayne in like 2 hours.
Well, there you go.
He's probably actually. I was going to say he's actually probably closer to me than Tyler is.
I think he is, just because I've been to Fort Wayne before, and it wasn't that bad of a day trip. So
I'll send you his address. You can show up. Tell him I sent you.
Andy sent me. He said,
"Bring him a pumpkin spice latte. He'll be fine."
Right.
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to tell you, Andy. Like where I live, we have a pumpkin festival. It's called the Pumpkin Show. And so basically, I just call it how we worship the great pumpkin.
Ooh.
Because it's everything pumpkin could possibly imagine, and then more stuff that you would never think of being with pumpkin.
Awesome. I'm into it.
Oh, totally.
Ain't nothing like fall in the Midwest.
It's true. It's true. And that's the one good redeeming quality about Ohio is the following. The fall. And that Superman was created here. And we have the Siegel House for history.
Oh, okay.
There's the good things I love about Ohio.
Awesome.
The fall and that Superman was born here. And
what other reasons do you need?
Yeah. What else? What other reasons do you like Ohio, Tyler? That's it.
Now, have you guys made the trek to Metropolis, Illinois?
I have. Not for celebration, because every time we actually make plans to go for celebration, things happen. One, my wife gets accepted into a special school program and we can't go. Then a pandemic happens and then we buy a house. So I'm hoping that next year we'll be able to go for the celebration. So, and the kids are older now. They'll actually be able to enjoy it and remember it. So,
yeah, cool. I have not yet. So I'm very, very excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I've never been, and I'm from Illinois, and so I'm just ashamed of myself that I never made it down there. But it is, it's on the to-do list. It looks so fun.
I've talked to a lot of people who've gone down there and been part of things, and I've interviewed the museum owner and everything, and I love the museum. They've done remodeling. There's a lot of stuff that they have that they didn't even have out on display when I was there. So it's like I could just go live there. I actually tried to convince my wife to let us move there because they had a house that was immaculate for sale that was cheaper than the house we bought here in Ohio. I was like, we could just move to Metropolis, Illinois.
See, you just want the address, though.
I mean, yeah, it'd be awesome.
I mean, I don't blame you.
I mean, there's a Bat Cave, North Carolina.
No.
Yeah. I discovered that when my wife and I lived in North Carolina. I was like, we have to drive. Let's go.
Awesome.
So yeah, good times.
I think Andy has to visit.
Yes.
He's like, where is this North Carolina? Got it. So, all right. Well, Andy, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We could talk forever. And I said about an hour, and I try to keep to my word because time is precious for all of us. And
that's very nice of you. My wife even said, how long is their show? I go, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll find out. At least it's not disorder.
I mean, I'll tell you this. For the first time that I guessed it on the Always Hold On to Smallville podcast, me and the host, Zach, talked for 3 hours. And my wife's like, are you still talking? I'm like, look, 2 Uber Superman fans meeting for the first time. Yeah, we're going to talk for a while.
Yeah.
I'm like, but, I'm older now, more mature. You have your wife and your time and soon a baby. So time is precious. So I try to respect that of all my guests.
Well, I appreciate this, but this is time well spent. Happy to just chat about Superman and Batman all night.
I mean, yeah, I'm excited because, today we got the big announcement about Mark Waid writing the new Batman Superman World Finest book.
Uh-huh.
So that's going to be exciting to read.
Speaking of books, if have not read Philip K. Johnson's Superman in action run. Like, he just started the World Saga. I think there's 2 issues out for it. Fantastic.
All right. Note to self. How old is this?
Yeah. Well,
It just started.
It just started.
he just
Okay,
started.
so
He started writing right after Future State. So
okay.
I'm sure a handful of issues are now on DC Universe.
Well, that's what I was asking. I was like, if I can just read it as part of DC Universe, that's perfect.
Yep, 1037 just came out. So
And we got to review that one next, James.
yes, we do.
But Andy, it's been a pleasure to finally get to talk with you. The weird part is, like, I've had your voice in my head for years with all your different podcasts and conversations that I've listened to. So it's nice to actually get to talk to you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again for the invite. And thank you for your patience while we figured it out. So I definitely do appreciate
podcasting.
it. Oh, man.
That's
Ain't that the truth?
You know, that's life. That's podcasting. Is anyone who gets like bent out of shape because you're scheduling, like, I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to talk because, you know, if I respect you, you should respect me. The fact that we're people, you know, we have lives and we're not getting paid for this. You know, we're doing this for fun, like time. So before we close out, Andy, why don't you go ahead and just kind of plug and kind of give like little pitches about, we've brought up all of your podcasts throughout the conversation.
Almost.
But just kind of,
you missed one.
Almost.
But
I know because it's the one I don't listen to because I don't have as much knowledge. It's the Futurama.
That's okay. I'm not ashamed to say it's my least listened to podcast, and that's fine.
I listened to the first 2 seasons. I've fallen behind on that.
That's all
but
right.
I was trying to watch along. So once watching along got behind on listening to the podcast at the same time, oh crap! Now I can't keep listening. You know?
Hey, I'm pumped for when Disorder starts cracking to all those Disney sequels direct to DVD and VHS. That's what I'm waiting for when they're like, today we're going to talk about Hunchback 2, Pocahontas 2, 102 Dalmatians, the animated. Like, all the ones where you're like, oh yeah, they did do that. Brother Bear 2.
Well, you know, here's an exclusive for your podcast. You might not have to wait long for that.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking
Awesome.
So yeah, Holy Batcast is what we've talked about the most because that is my Batman show. It's mostly about Batman, but yeah, we do cover anything DC related. Just depends. We do news, but then we also will review movies or animated movies, or like you said, we just reviewed Titan season 3. So any DC media, but you know, we give precedence to we give priority to anything that's Batman first. So that always comes first, but Holy Batcast, then Disorder, every Disney film. When we started it, the plan was to do every Disney animated feature in chronological order, but we did that. We finished it. When was it? Early this year, maybe, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I've been listening.
So we finally finished the initial mission statement of Disorder. We got up to date on the animated features, although a new one just came out, but I haven't even seen it yet. And now we're just kind of cherry picking and doing other Disney films. So, you know, we're recording this in December. The most recent one we did was The Muppet Christmas Carol for Christmas. And then, yes, figuring out what we might do for January.
Really enjoyed the
I'm
Hocus
looking
Pocus
forward to
episode.
listening to that one because I watch Muppet Christmas Carol.
All right. Well, give that a listen when you get a chance. And I'm glad you like the Hocus Pocus one. That one was super fun for Halloween.
Yeah, it's just because I have such interesting memories. Like, my quick geek story about that is when I met Doug Jones.
Oh, nice.
And it was like, oh, he was in Hellboy. And I was like, sweet. He was the Silver Surfer. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm talking to him, and then I see like he was Billy Bones. That's when I lost my mind. Like, you were Billy, like, you know. And I'm just like going crazy, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It was just funny because I was like, that was more exciting to me than the fact that like he was in Hellboy or Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that was like his big start. Was yeah.
I was like, you were in Hocus Pocus.
So yeah, Disorder, and then Real Fans for Real Movies, which that's one of the shows that unfortunately suffers from scheduling more than others. But during the holidays, it's very active because we did a Halloween special, we did a Thanksgiving special. Just yesterday, I released the Christmas special. So if you like holiday content, that's a place to go. And then we always try to do at least like the end of year wrap up for movies, and we get it in there when we can. So that's Real Fans for Real Movies. And then why not Futurama? So if you love Futurama, you can listen to that. And me and my best friend Scotty, we've been going through the show episode by episode. We are currently getting very close to the end of season 5, which is the first time the show was canceled. So we're getting really close to getting that original run done, and then we have to get to the straight-to-video movies. So nice. There you go. 4 podcasts that I try to juggle in my spare time.
I understand that. I took on just this one because I want my wife to not leave me.
That's smart. I mean,
4 podcasts. That's Herculean.
It's too much. Yeah, I ran into a colleague the other day, and he's like, "How do you find the time?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't. It's hard. It's horrible."
He's like, "I go to sleep at night, and I just talk in my sleep, and I record it, and then I edit it into a podcast.
Pretty much.
Whichever one I mumble about the most becomes the next episode."
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's get out of here. We got lives to leave. Thank you, Andy. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank
James,
you, guys.
Thank you for being here. I want to thank everyone for listening. Check out our Patreon. We're doing the Just $1 promo. Check out Patreon for Holy Batcast if you're into that. I am. That's where I got inspired to do the Just $1 because I've been giving $1 to Holy Batcast for several years because that's all I could afford because I do my own podcast. So just remember. And remember,
look up in the sky.
Do you like movies? Of course you do. Do you like comic book movies? Of course you do. Well, our Patreon is launched now. It's $1 a month. That's all we ask. $1 a month to hear great content. And right now, one of the biggest things we're doing on our Patreon is movie commentaries. I am a movie person, and I love to talk about movies. So what we're doing is at least 2 movie commentaries a month. You'll hear the wonderful voice of my wife, Jania, more often, and other special shows. Check out our Patreon at kryptonreport.com/Patreon. And all we ask is, hey, $1. It helps us keep the show on. We're not looking to get rich. We just help with the cost of doing this, and it helps a friend out. You loan a friend $1, you probably have $1 lying around the house and change. So check out patreon.com/KryptonReport. Sign up for the $1 a month and send us a message. You can be on the podcast. We can talk about something, anything you want to talk about. You can join us for a movie commentary if you want. So check it out.
And if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
If you're enjoying this podcast, here's some of our favorite podcasts to check out. Digging for Kryptonite, The Aspiring Kryptonian, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Geek of Steel, the All-Star Superfan Podcast, It All Comes Back to Superman, and Superboy Legacy, Supergirl Radio, and of course, always hold on to Smallville. Check all those out, enjoy those supercasts, and remember, keep listening. The Krypton Report is a Tears production. We thank you for listening and enjoying, and please support us on our Patreon account, our TeePublic store, and check out our social media. Always remember to look up in the sky.